Hello, wonderful nerds of the internet, and welcome back to 6 Plus Plus. It is I, your host Tom, Very Lowest of Men here, and I'm back with another Counterplay Plus Plus. This is a guide to helping you take on problem units in the game. What problems are they creating? Why is there an issue? Why are we hearing about them? Sort of going through that first. And then looking and thinking about how you, the player, can solve and deal with the problem on the tabletop. We had an amazing response to the last one, which was about Deathwing Knights. So I've got straight back in the studio to make another, and there have been a ton of requests. So I'm going to keep fielding requests, and do keep them coming in the comments. I want to deal with more. Today we're talking about the Ctan, those naughty space ghosts, all the troubles they cause, and how you can deal with them on the tabletop. I know for a fact this is something that players in all sorts of environments find really frustrating and difficult to deal with. So I'm excited to share some of the secrets and some of the solutions today as a former Ctan slayer myself with my Leagues of Votan over the last year or two. So plenty of advice to offer here. As ever, please do hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Do leave us comments. All that engagement is really useful to us. If you want to support what we, the team at 6 Plus Plus, are doing, you can sign up to be a YouTube member and support us that way. We have so many members these days. We're very grateful. We'd love to get some more. And if you're interested in getting some mentoring or coaching with your favorite army, then we offer that as well. You can get in touch with us via our Discord. Links in the description below for all that good stuff as well. Okay, so today we're thinking about Ctan. Now, Ctan have been pretty infamous since the Necron book came out, and indeed before. They are strong, powerful entities, appropriate to their lore as, shards of God and very powerful creatures out in the world, and very, very tough to deal with. And it's funny because Deathwing was another one people talked about a lot and wanted to hear about. And I think in some ways there are similarities. Ctan pose a similar sort of problem on certain levels, but then there are subtle differences between them and Deathwing Knights that mean a different set of problems are needed to deal with them and to solve the issue. So what we're going to do today is unpack how a Ctan works and why Necron Catan is such a pain, and then we'll look at some of the solutions that you, the player, can apply. Okay, if you've got others, I'd love to know as well. Do let us know in the comments. So let's examine this issue. So the problem, first and foremost, is these big chonky space ghosts. So toughness 11, 12 wounds, 4 up in run, 5 up feel no pain, half damage, very nasty. And crucially, because they are Necron, they heal as well. So if you haven't destroyed the Ctan in the command phase, it begins to heal, I think, D3 wounds a time. So if you fail to kill a Ctan, they start getting back up again. Very annoying to deal with. They have, in their own right, very good elite killing melee output. This varies a little bit from Ctan to Ctan, but the gist is several attacks of high quality. The Transcendent has sustained, which enable them to sort of cleave through elite armored units, decent AP and decent damage on those attacks. Void Dragon particularly good at killing vehicles. The different flavors pose different threats. As mentioned, Void Dragon will drain the life out of your vehicles and smash those up if he gets too close to them. Transcendent Ctan are particularly obnoxious because they are not named characters, so you can have several of them, and they can teleport around the board when they advance. So they can suddenly pop up somewhere and be a real pest in different portions of the board as well. And Nightbringer is just an all-round beat stick, very unpleasant, and packs some sort of mortal wounds in there as well. So that's the gist of the issue. There are similarities to the old Deathwing Knight in that there's a damage reduction factor in play. But unlike Deathwing Knights, they have a very high toughness. They pack a lot more wounds. They boast a very solid, consistent feel no pain. And they also heal. So the undercommitment issue is very, very pronounced with Ctan. So let's think about how they are used and what the opponent wants first and foremost. So when we're solving a problem, we want to think about what the opponent is going to use this unit for, what they are envisioning it achieving, and then we're going to think about what the points of failure in it doing that are, because that is where the opportunity to exploit their game plan for our own advantage kicks in. And ultimately, with Ctan, they are bait. They are big, durable things that are going to draw out enemy commitment in an attempt to kill them. Much like the Deathwing Knights, you'll see a bounce commitment here, which is going to fall short of killing a Ctan, which is then going to heal up, and then there's going to be a wider counterattack from other Necron units and the Ctan itself. They will typically waltz towards the midboard to dominate objectives, but you also, in the form of the Transcendent, have a teleporting, scoring and backfield threat, right? So Necron players will sometimes be looking for an opportunity to teleport the Transcendent in behind your lines, at which stage your own ability to actually deal with and shoot that guy can often be quite vulnerable. If you've committed your forces forwards, Transcendent suddenly turns up in your backfield, that can be really, really bad. Now, Recent changes to Hypercrypt have actually made the interaction with this a little bit less effective, so it's much harder for Hypercrypt to. It has less things it can jump up and around. It can also it can't sort of short deep strike the Ctan. So Ctan are less mobile than they used to be, and Hypercrypt in particular was a massive problem. So now it's much more a case of them creeping towards the midboard where they're going to try and get on the points and smash everything there, with the Transcendent using its teleport if it gets an opportunity. I'll never forget the first time a Transcendent teleported into my backfield. It was not a good day. It was very scary. It turned an otherwise a very comfortable game suddenly into a really rough and scary position. So that's the game plan. So let's think about what the points of failure are. And there are several. So they're slow, first and foremost. They move 6. The Transcendent is quick if it advances, but if it advances, it's not charging. And the Transcendent can only go where there's space for it. So their OC is only 4. That's actually a very low amount of OC to contest objectives with on their own. So they're not really going to take objectives off living units. If you can avoid letting a Ctan connect into your on-field units, you've got a very reasonable chance of still holding the point. Unlike Deathwing Knights with their 2-up save and Armour of Contempt, Ctan is relying on its 4-up invuln. It has a 4-up save, so any kind of AP is immediately going to be putting it on the 4-up invuln. And something I think is really important when you're a newer player to learn is that 4-up invulns get more powerful the less shooting and the less volume, crucially, you have. It feels oppressive when you're firing 3 Bright Lances or Las Cannons or whatever else it is you have at a Ctan, and he's saving 2 of them, halving the other and saving most of the damage, right? Those kind of high-quality, low-volume shots are precisely the worst ones against Ctan a lot of the time because they will simply soak up all of that damage. But a coin flip 4-up save can also betray you, and if you apply mass volume, and that is the key to Ctan, volume, you can push through these defenses and push through this damage. So let's start thinking about solving the problem. Ultimately, some of the usual tools are available to you. You can block Ctan, try and keep them in place, if you can place models where they would like to move, they can't fly through, they can't reach objectives. If they're not on objectives, they're much less of an issue. You can also stay well away from them. And I think the issue that they have, even in Hypercrypt, is with sort of redeploying of Ctan, they're still only trying to hit 9 charges, which can leave them out of position. And as long as you're avoiding letting them make easy 9 charges onto your objectives by screening them out, you can avoid Ctan getting into good places on the board. Screening in general is crucial. You absolutely don't want Ctan getting around behind you, so you want to screen your backfield as much as you can. Make sure there aren't easy positions for them to be by screening out everywhere, so there's no 9 spaces for a Transcendent to teleport in or a redeploying Ctan to end up. So that's a start point. Out-OCing and tying up can work in the short term if you need to buy time. And the crucial thing here, as discussed, is that they've only got 4 OC. So any kind of decent OC on a point is going to cancel them out. And if you need to throw combat into them, what I advise is durable 4-up invuln type combat units that can tank a decent number of their attacks. They have elite quality attacks rather than mass volume attacks. So decent sort of elite invuln save type units can hold with them and brawl with them for a little while. Or alternatively, just throw a sort of big chaff unit of neophytes or hormagaunts or whatever else is, so that they simply don't have the number of attacks to kill out of you in time. Once they're bogged down, the Ctan become a lot easier to manage, and because they're monsters, you can, of course, keep shooting them. My advice, like any kind of skew target with large, durable units, when you are practicing and learning how to deal with them, the crucial bit of advice is to focus exactly one at a time, because remember that bounce commitment. The bounce and the failure and the opportunity that the Necron player is looking for is you try and nibble off more than you can chew. You attack 2 Ctan at once. You don't quite kill either of them. They both heal up. They both hit you back. That is a complete no-sell for you. It's a field day for them, and it puts them in a very powerful position. So start off by focusing down a single Ctan at a time if you are trying to fight and engage with them. And as with any durable unit, again, my advice is if you're not going to kill it, don't commit resources and try. If you think you have the resources and you've got the lined up efforts to deal with it, that's when you go for it. And when you can focus enough an army and enough resources on them, you have a much better chance at dealing with them. There are obviously a number of different ways to bypass their defenses. Mortal and Dev Wounds will take them straight to the 5-up Feel No Pain, which isn't too obnoxious. It can spike, but it's not too bad. Lethal Hits will help you get around the toughness, as will +1 to Wound. They're especially vulnerable to these. good rerolls with lethal hits and +1 to wound makes a massive difference into Catan. And we'll talk about it in a moment, but Melter in recent times is also a very nice resource to have because that breaks their little half damage rule in ways that are quite effective as well. So let's move then to think about the optimal damage problems in line with how we looked at it last time. Ultimately, to deal with Catan, you need mass volume, shooting and combat. Lots of rerolls, +1 to wound if you can get it, anti-monster, 4-up if you can get it, lethal hits, absolutely amazing. And the thing to remember is that any AP is okay. It's actually better to have a lot of trashy attacks with those kinds of buffs applied. Something like a Court of an Archon is a great idea, where there's a bunch of Cabalites there basically slapping with their hands. But they're coming in at AP1 with lethals and full rerolls. That is going to push damage through. Ironically, better than like one Incubi would. So I think avoiding damage 2, chucking on the volume in terms of +1 to wound, lethals, and rerolls where you can apply it, really, really useful if you have those tools. 3 damage is the least affected by damage reduction, so if you have damage 3, that's still getting 2 through for every failed save. And Melter damage, crucially, of any kind, also adds after the damage reduction. So if you can get a Heat Lance or a Melter Gun through, that's going to do significant damage on a failed save. And then once you start putting a few of those kinds of shots in the mix alongside all your volume, the Catan starts to look very vulnerable. I've had Reaver Jet Bites go through Catan. But alternatively, the other way is just Votan with just massed shooting. As ever, you can pack and ignore modifiers if you have that in your locker somewhere. That definitely helps. But obviously, the Necron player, I assume, will be trying to avoid letting you launch that into your Catan. Grenade and Tank Shock are an interesting one for this. So because it's not a 4-up Feel No Pain, because it's a 5-up, you should be able to sprinkle a few wounds through with Grenade and Tank Shock if you're in a pinch. In a desperate situation where you really need to make sure you get those wounds through and get the job done, if you have the CP to spare, it can very much be worth using those to just sprinkle an extra 4 or 5, 6 mortal wounds on, knowing that a good chunk of those will not be saved by the Feel No Pain. Obviously, they may spike, and this is a risky play. It can be frustrating, but when you really have to do it, and so the crucial thing with the Catan is confirming the kill, I definitely think those stratagems in addition can be very nice. And typically what it means is a focused and combined arms effort with plenty of volume to drop the Catan. You're going to focus a good chunk of your resources. It might take shooting and combat and other resources. Maybe it's Thousand Suns. You might need a Doom Bolt in there alongside a grenade, all sorts of different things. But the crucial thing is to hose down one at a time. Catan themselves are very expensive, and their game plan is predicated on surviving. They effectively don't get their army rule if you kill them, guys, which is a very powerful position to be in, but it's definitely going to be about isolating and dealing with one at a time whilst keeping them in front of you, keeping a track of where they can move to, and avoiding a situation where you've got several of them all on you at once, causing you problems. That is today's Counterplay Plus Plus. I hope you enjoyed it. It was interesting to go back to Catan and revisit them. I appreciate they're a massive sort of gatekeeping bully unit, and I hope that advice serves you. Let me know what's been working for you in your games and what kinds of strategies. I know different armies have to deal with them in different ways. And crucially, let me know what unit you'd like me to cover next, because I've got a real hankering for this now, and I'll be really keen to keep Counterplay Plus Plus rolling for you over the next few months. Thanks so much for supporting 6++. Please do hit like and subscribe, leave us a comment, get signed up as a YouTube member. This is a big year for us. We're going big. We want to go to the stars. Help us get there. And hopefully there won't be any Catan there, right? Anyway, that's me done for today. Lowest of Men out. Bye-bye.